Pass the Bible On family, thank you so much for tuning in for today's video. We hope you are all doing so amazing.
Today, me and my two daughters, we are going to be talking about guarding. So, why don't I ask you guys, when you think about guarding, what comes to your head? What comes to your head, Fred?
You guard something that's valuable.
Okay.
Well, depending on how valuable it is, like the level of guarding needed to protect the item is different.
Very true. What else comes to your head?
When something's being guarded, it's usually guarded 24/7. I don't think something that's valuable will just automatically stop being guarded after a certain point in time.
Absolutely. So you have to guard it according to how valuable it is, and you have to guard it all the time, because the moment you're not guarding it, something can happen. So it can be stolen. I picked these pictures to show different kinds of guarding. Which one did you like out of these four?
I like the little kid the most. One, because of his smile, and two, because he doesn't know the value of that helmet and what that could be protecting him from, especially at that age, but he's still being responsible and doing what he should be.
Surely, probably he doesn't understand it. His parents may force him to do it, right? That's one. Which one do you like, BTA?
I think I like the dog with the gun.
I love that one.
Yeah.
It's not real, but he's carrying a machine gun. He's doing two things. He's not only a dog, but he's also having a machine gun to guard. This is beautiful. Is there anything that comes to your head from the Bible that talks about guarding?
Guarding your heart. So the verse is in Proverbs 4:23, as it states, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it.
That's very true. So he said, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So it is from the heart that comes out. You guys say that it has to be valuable for you to protect it, and has to be done all the time. The heart is very, very precious. So important that it has to be guarded. And the Bible is saying, above all else, so comparing to others, this heart has to be guarded. Right?
Yes.
So how do we guard our hearts? And why do we have to guard our hearts?
So to answer your question, we have to guard anything that we value from our enemies, because they'll try to steal it from us, right?
Correct.
So in the Bible, it tells us that we have three enemies, and that's the flesh, like our own personal flesh, the world, and Satan himself.
So these three enemies, although they seem different, they have the exact same end goal, and it's to prevent us from walking in our purpose and fulfilling the calling that God has over our lives. Like we see in Hebrews 12, it actually tells us that these three enemies will try and get us to sin so badly that it just entangles us, so we become completely trapped and unable to move forward.
This is the example that we put in the picture here. This picture of a camel, to give you an example. A camel can go up to 30 miles an hour in the desert. It can run. But if you tangle it, and if you tie the leg, just one leg being tied, this camel is going to be standing there, so the owner doesn't have to worry if that camel goes from him. So there are sins that entangle us so that we don't go forward.
So one of the three enemies that we talked about that we have to guard our hearts from is our own flesh. Paul was advising his spiritual brother in 1 Timothy 2:22 by saying, flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. So Paul was telling Timothy that in order to have a pure heart, he must flee away from his own fleshly youth desires.
But that brings a question. How can you flee away from your own self, from your body? Frey, do you have any idea?
The Spirit of God that's dwelling within us and our flesh are constantly at battle, so there's no way we can please both. Paul is advising Timothy, his mentee, to run from his fleshly desires. And each of our fleshly desires look completely different than the other person. I might be struggling with something where they don't, and the vice versa.
So far what we have said is this. We have three enemies that we have to guard our hearts from. The first enemy is the flesh. So yes, we have the flesh within us, which is against the Spirit of the Lord. And we have to guard ourselves from this flesh, from its desires. In Galatians 5:26, it reads like this. So I say, walk by the Spirit. You will not gratify the desires of the flesh if you walk by the Spirit. That's how we guard our hearts from the desires of the flesh. Continuing to the second one. Let's talk about the Word. How do we guard our hearts from the Word?
So there's a huge promise in the Bible in 1 John chapter 5:4, where God says that everyone born of God overcomes the world.
That's really wonderful. There's actually another passage in Romans 12:2 that says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Although times are changing and things are definitely advancing, the world still has patterns. The patterns of this world looks like us wanting to gratify ourselves in our flesh. It's a me culture. It's very selfish, and we just want to possess everything that we can. But only by the renewing of our minds can we say no to the desires of our flesh. And only when we say no to the desires of our flesh are we able to understand the importance of guarding our heart in order to please the Lord with everything we do.
Our brains, our minds should be renewed, transformed every time, so we say no to what the Word provides us. On the other hand, we would want to know more what the will of God is, which is so good, which is so perfect, which is so pleasing.
As we mentioned, the world system is changing and growing every single day as technology is advancing. We have access to our phones, tablets, laptops, TVs, and you're constantly seeing everything on media. So you see what this person has and what this person is doing, and that's the glamour that the world is showing us. So the more time we spend on the worldly things like technology, the more doors we're opening in our hearts, and the world is just pulling us in deeper and deeper, and soon we're going to dwell in there without being even aware that we are dwelling in there.
This doesn't mean that technology is bad. No, we need the technology. However, dwelling in it is a wrong thing. I'd like to tell one example about a bee and a fly. One time, the fly was so mad at the bee, and he started asking him, "How come you have good things that people can use from, and I don't have anything?" And the bee replied this, "It's where you dwell." What did he mean? A fly dwells in the trash. A fly dwells in the bad places, and you cannot expect any good out of that. A bee dwells in the flower area, in a beautiful place, and honey comes out of that. So our dwelling place determines what can come out of us. If we dwell in this worldly system, nothing good can come out of that. But if we dwell in the will of God, guarding our hearts, then yes, great things can come from our hearts.
The third enemy we are to guard our hearts from is Satan. The Bible tells us that he is actually the ruler of the kingdom of the air, which means that this world is his playground.
That's why the Bible says in 1 Peter 5:8, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." The devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And this is why the Bible tells us to always be sober-minded and alert so we can constantly guard our hearts, because the devil is always roaming around waiting for the perfect moment to devour us.
There's one analogy that we want to share with you all that really helps us understand how exactly Satan works sometimes. So there's this man that has $1 million car. He's not like the ordinary person, so when he goes to any place to park, he is parking segregated from everybody else. One day he went to the grocery store and came back, and his car was not where he left it. So he went, filed a police report, did the whole thing, and the next morning, somehow, the car appeared in his driveway. He went to go inspect it to see if anything was wrong, but in fact the car was cleaned, it was vacuumed, the tank was full, and there was a note left on the passenger seat. And the note said, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, I really needed to take your car, but here are 2 tickets to tonight's basketball game, I hope you enjoy." So he was overjoyed that not only did he get his car back, but it actually came with a gift, and so that night him and his wife went out to the game. They were at the game having the time of their lives, They even caught dinner after, and when they came home, their home was totally empty. That person had taken his house key off of his key set and was intentional about robbing him while he was distracted. That's exactly how Satan works. Satan isn't going to say, "Free, come here, let me kill you." Satan is going to give me a little something that sparkles and something that I'm after, and slowly with time, little by little, he begins to take pieces of me every time I let him in.
We all know that thorns and weeds grow on their own. You don't have to sow it. The farmer should be always mindful and sober to remove all the thorns and weeds from his field. And as we know, dust comes in its own. You have to clean your house all the time. Likewise, our hearts can be full of bad things unless we are sober enough, we are alert enough to clean it. One of the biggest things that each and every one of us should ask is my heart guarded? If our hearts are not guarded truly, then the devil, the flesh, and the world are going to sow thorns in our hearts. So please be mindful and let's check what is in our hearts.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's video, Pass the Bible on Family. We really do love you and we'll be praying for each of you. And please continue to pray for us and our ministry as well. May God bless you abundantly, and we will see you again soon.